I mean, the prevailing theory is that Greece and potentially some of the other PIIGs will actually depart the euro. What's your sentiment on that?
So let's take a step back and think about Europe as a project. Europe as a project over the last 30 or 40 years is an overly political project. A monetary union or a single currency and things like that is a stepping stone onto the ultimate objective, based out of some of those post-World War II issues and related, of a unified political outlook. Now, if you think about this, what is the one thing that could stop a unified political outlook? And that would be people leaving the single currency and breaking out and doing their own thing again. So the prevailing environment is, the preference is clearly and undoubtedly for countries to stay within, and that would include Greece. However, here's the financial reality. The financial reality is that when you bring together countries, a range of countries under one roof, one economic roof, there are problems and anomalies because countries are different. We've seen this before. If you look at the States, you think about the United States, you think about the differences in economic output and drivers and stimulus between the north of the US and the southern states of the US over much of the last 100 years. There's been lots of differences. It takes a lot of time to iron out those changes. So what you need in order to help iron that out is you need what is known as regional transfers. So basically from Brussels, the centre of the European Union, the European Commission, to then spend money in order to even out some of the problem areas, Greece, Portugal, the PIIGs, etc., and that to be funded by some of the richer areas, the Germanys and the Netherlands and the other countries like that. So here is the big problem. People talk about a political union and talk about that notion as being something to move towards, but when the financial realities come, they're unwilling to put their hand sufficiently in their pocket to help fund it and finance it. And you can see it through the current debate on where we're going with Greece and related. So actually this tension, this anomaly, means that you've still got issues within Europe. And the only way you're going to solve that is if you have the richer countries assisting the poorer ones in the name of a broader European ideal. If that cannot be set up, then the Eurozone in its current setup will not persist.
Do you think they will keep putting their hands in their pocket?
I think this is the critical time. My feeling is, my looking at what's happening in the commentary, etc., is that political ideal still exists, and I think that there's a sensible compromise point where they can at least, the richer countries can tell their local electorates that we got some concessions on this, but that ultimately for the bigger picture and bigger stability reasons, we've done this. So how I perceive things will happen going forward is that there will be a haircut, as the financial parlance put it, a reduction in the amount of Greek bonds in order to finance this. As a consequence, there'll be losses by bondholders who traditionally are within Europe. So some of the European countries will take a hit because of the write-down on the value of Greek bonds, but that will allow Greece to reset itself and move forward as a nation and as part of the Eurozone. Now that requires compromise on both fronts, but I think given those bigger political ideals, that's highly likely to happen. That would be my scenario for kind of 2015, 2016. At the moment you'll get the debate and that will continue, but that's the conclusion I think we'll come to. There should be a write-down and a reset, and Greece will stay within the Eurozone, and the Eurozone will remain as it is in terms of composition.
What would be the repercussions of a return to the drachma if it went the wrong way?
Yes, I think for Greece it would be initially very negative in the sense that your international purchasing power would go down substantially because the new drachma would probably fall somewhere between 30 and 60% against other currencies in the region, the euro, the dollar, and things like that. Some people say that, look, this is great news for Greece ultimately because what it means is that they'll become very cheap, holidays to Greece will become very cheap and related. That's true, but I think if devaluations worked all the time, then everyone would be doing it. And the reality is that's not the case. Some circumstances they can be helpful and useful, And I could cite, for example, in the UK, in 1992, we left the ERM and it benefited our economy in the 1990s as a consequence. But let's face it, since I was born, when I was born, you had around about, I think it was 12 Deutsche Marks to the pound. In 1992, the UK was unable to sustain a rate of 2.95 Deutsche Marks to the pound. And today, if you looked at what a Deutsche Mark based on the euro would be against the pound, it would be less than 2. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, over the last 40 odd years, the pound has devalued materially against the Deutsche Mark, if the Deutsche Mark still existed, a sort of a synthetic Deutsche Mark, materially. Which is the richer country? Has there been an over benefit to the UK of all of those devaluations? No. UK is in a reasonable economic status, but by no means has devaluation allowed us to really reset the economy or do wonderful things. In fact, actually, I would argue, in terms of relative standard of living and purchasing power, it's benefited much more the Germans. So I don't think devaluations can at any point be sustained or sensible. And my personal view is that for Greece, you're far better off staying in the euro, far better off remaining part of that club. And hopefully the European powers will say, look, let's push together some more regional support and through agree to a bond haircut in order to allow a bit of a reset. Because let's face it, the big mistake was made in allowing Greece to join in the first place. But now you're in, they should keep them in.
As a top exporter, Germany profited from selling goods that the PIIGs bought with money borrowed at low rates from German banks. And if the Deutsche Mark was still in circulation, it would most probably act like another Swiss franc with its value going through the roof. That would put a serious dampener on Germany's exports. Please comment.
I think that statement is absolutely correct. And this is why the EuroZone should stay together. Because think about what would happen if the EuroZone broke up. You wouldn't get a complete fragmentation with the return to 15 or 20 different national currencies. What you would get is a hardcore grouping around Germany inevitably, reforming to form Euro Mark II or Deutsche Mark Zone Mark II, whatever you wanted to call it. And that currency, I reckon, against the dollar would probably be 20 to 30% higher than it is today. And as a consequence, that does crimp materially German exports, and consequently could probably put the German economy into recession, which would not be good. So this is why Germany, rationally, should be comfortable with the notion of giving a little bit more support in order to contain and continue the current Eurozone concept. It has economic positives, plus also there's this whole political issue as well of trying to push together towards a more unified European ideal. So I think for Germany it makes a huge amount of sense to actually compromise a little bit for their own direct economic short-term drivers as well as the longer-term ones.